Coming back, once you have all these values keyed in, you can click on create cluster. Now, because as I said, it's an interactive cluster, this is going to take at least 7 minutes to 9 minutes. So please be patient while it's active, while it is being under the creation mode. Once this is done, that's when you can click on the plus new, click on the notebook, this plus new, and click on notebook. Once you click on the notebook, an empty Jupyter-like notebook is now created for you. So I'm going to very quickly introduce this notebook to you all. So the compute is now created. The CPU is now available to us. The cluster is available to us. Your next step, once you click on plus new and create notebook, is that you need to associate that cluster that you have created to this notebook. In order to associate, I'm going to show you again. You will either see terminated or previously existing cluster here. Click on the drop down. It will show you all the available clusters that you have with you. So use that cluster. Choose that specific cluster that you had just created a moment ago. Once you have chosen, you're now all set to use this notebook. You have now CPU available to execute your codes that you have with you. Okay. Now there is an important point to note. Is Jupyter notebook, so is the Databricks notebooks exactly like your Jupyter notebook? It has all the features that a typical Jupyter notebook might have. But other than that, it has some additional features. Feature number 1, it supports multi-person editing. What exactly does it mean? For example, there are 10 people in the team. If all 10 people want to collaboratively work on the single notebook, they can actually do that. Each one of them have their own clusters, or they are sharing a specific cluster like we talked a moment ago, and can edit this notebook collaboratively at the same time. So you either use single user cluster or shared cluster. No matter what, 10 people can collaboratively work and edit this notebook. That's important feature number 1. Feature number 2, you see there is something called as version history. How this specific notebook has undergone changes is something you can see in version history. How this is different from Git versioning, we will talk about that when we touch upon that specific topic, but both are not one and the same. This specific notebook has its own versions, but this is different from Git version. Okay, this is notebook versioning, whereas in Git you version your entire. There are some differences between these two, which we will discuss about when we actually start using GitHub as a part of Databricks environment. But to very quickly highlight, you can actually version your notebook. You can track all the changes, all the times when there are changes made to the specific. So the kind of questions you will get in your certification exam is that question number 3, if you see, you notice that a colleague is manually copying the notebook with _BKP in its name to store the previous version. What it means is that, let's say, for example, I have first initially created a notebook called Soma1. I created a notebook called Soma. Okay. The next time I'm going to make changes, I'm first saving this notebook as Soma_BKP. Then I'm creating new notebook called Soma. That is what question means. So what it says or asks is that you notice that your colleague is manually copying the notebook with _BKP to store previous versions. Which of the following features or which feature in Databricks notebooks would you recommend instead? So the feature we will recommend is this version history or versioning of your notebook. That is something you can recommend to your colleague in order to avoid creation of several notebooks with different prefixes or suffixes. This is a kind of question you can face in your exam, in your certification. Okay. So one final feature about Databricks notebook is that the best part is, again, we'll touch upon this sometime tomorrow. The idea was that you can write PySpark code in the same notebook. You can write SQL code as well in the same notebook. How? You start with %PySpark. If PySpark is your default, you can directly use, let's say, pd.read_CSV. But if you want to use SQL code in the same thing, all you can simply do is just mention %SQL at the starting of the cell. Then you can write select star code immediately after. That's one other beautiful feature which you will get in Databricks notebook that you might not have in your Jupyter. Also, the reason why, because of this interactive features that Databricks offers, It's very easy and straightforward to run your Spark workloads or distributed computing workloads under Databricks rather than having your own Spark environment and managing it. So that concludes my discussion on Databricks notebooks.